Good afternoon. I'm Jason Crow from the great state of Colorado, and I'm surrounded here by my fellow veterans, congressional veterans and non-congressional veterans. We stand here in solidarity for Congress to retake its constitutional power over war powers and to do the right thing for millions of veterans and military families. I served 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, was sent to war to help enrich oil companies and oil executives, saw Americans give their lives, saw people have to go on tour after tour after tour while people in this building failed to take the votes, failed to debate, failed to take votes to pay for it, so it added to our debt. So I'm sorry, I get pretty damn hot as a 3-time combat veteran when a 5-time draft dodger like Donald Trump bangs the war drums and talks tough about sending our men and women into battle into harm's way yet again. Because what I learned years ago is that when elites in Washington, D.C. bang the war drums and talk tough, they're not talking about sending their kids into battle. They're talking about sending people like me and the people behind me into war. Working class folks from towns around this country, from rural areas, from small towns. They're the ones that have to jump into tanks and pick up rifles and jump into helicopters and do the tough thing. Well, I've had enough of it. The appetite in America for endless wars and endless conflict, for trillions of dollars just to pad the pockets of big oil and large executives, it should be done. This is our chance. Congress has the opportunity to end it, to reinsert, as the Constitution required, this building and these folks back into the conversation and to resume control over war powers and to end the endless cycle of war and conflict that we have seen over the last 2 decades. So we are standing here to call on every member of Congress to take the vote today to end these endless conflicts, to step back into the driver's seat and to do the right thing. I am honored to be staying here with my fellow veterans, one of whom, Chris DeLuzio from Pennsylvania, has time and time again since he's come here stepped up to do the right thing, to fight for working class Americans, to fight for our labor brothers and sisters, and to fight for the people who have been sent to fight for us. Chris DeLuzio.
Thanks, Jason. I thank my colleague Jason Crow. He's an Army guy. I won't hold that against him. He's a Navy guy myself. I thank him for convening us here to deliver a pretty clear message. The people who we serve with in Congress ought to grow a spine and stand up for the American people and the war powers that rest with the Congress and the American people, not any president. And to be reminded of who bears the cost of decisions to send Americans to risk their lives and bleed and fight. That cost is tremendous in terms of treasure, and it's even higher when you think about the American blood that is spilled anytime you send Americans to fight. I'm a veteran of the war in Iraq. My friends and my classmates served there, in Afghanistan, and throughout the 20-plus years of forever wars in the Middle East. They know that cost, and too often, we all saw chicken hawks, many who still serve here, beating the drum to war, sending Americans to fight recklessly, and then pinch pennies when it came time to pay the cost of war. The cost of war includes caring for veterans. It means fully funding the VA. And so many who are beating the war drum once again ought to be reminded of that. Representative Liu and I have a bill that so many here are supporting about paying the full cost of war, that if those folks want to send Americans to fight, you fund at the outset the VA and the cost that will come from sending Americans to fight. And yet the people we serve with, those beating the drum once again for war with Greenland and who knows who else, they don't even want to ask the American people whether they support sending Americans to fight. My standard is clear. Can you look young Americans in the eye and tell them they should risk their lives for what you want to do? Can you look parents and grandparents in the eye and say their young sons and daughters and grandchildren should risk their lives and maybe die for that cause? And again, Donald Trump and his allies in Congress beating the war drum don't even want to ask the question. That should tell you all you need to know. I don't think American lives should be risked recklessly. I don't think American treasure should be risked recklessly. And our generation of veterans knows those costs deeply. And again, our message is simple. war powers lie with the American people under our Constitution, with Congress, and our Republican counterparts ought to grow a spine and read the Constitution. Thank you. Introduce? Oh, sure.
Next up, we'll hear from another fellow veteran, an incredible member of Congress from California, Derek Tran.
Thank you, Jason. Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, especially my fellow National Security Task Force co-chairs, Rep. Crow, and hopefully Goodlander gets here soon. I can't count how many times I've said this now, but it bears repeating. We do not need another forever war. Right now, we have a president who doesn't care about the Constitution, doesn't care about checks and balances, and doesn't care about the global allies that help keep our troops safe. As veterans, we know what's at stake when our brothers and sisters in uniform are sent in harm's way. President Trump's invasion of Venezuela wasn't the first time he's used the military as his personal political weapon. His strikes in the Caribbean and in the Middle East show a clear pattern of recklessness and incompetence. And now he's threatening NATO allies over a Greenland pipe dream. That's not leadership. That's cowardice. Our troops deserve so much better. The American people deserves better. Pouring billions of dollars into a dangerous, costly, forever war is a slap in the face to the families who pinch pennies just to keep the lights on. We are here today, not as just veterans or members of Congress, but as patriots, to say enough is enough. Congress needs to fulfill its constitutional obligation and take back our war powers. This isn't about Democrats or Republicans. This is about right and wrong. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Tran. And now a special treat for me, having my dear friend, fellow combat veteran, and the former congressman, and most importantly, the pride of Staten Island, the wonderful Congressman Max Rose.
Representative Crow, thank you for convening us all here today. Thank you for your friendship, and thank you for your leadership, not just in combat, but in terms of your advocacy on behalf of veterans for so many years after you came home. And of course, as well, thank you to Congressman DeLuzio, Congressman Tran, for your extraordinary leadership. Look, I'll be very brief. The members who are set to vote on this bill regarding congressional war powers today, they have shown a willingness for years to thank veterans for their service. They've shown a willingness to vote for exceedingly bloated defense budgets. They've shown a willingness to talk tough on the campaign trail and in the halls of Congress regarding how they're going to be strong and take the fight not just to our enemies abroad, but also take the fight to things like cutting the cost of living, to things like reducing healthcare costs. Constant strength they show. But today, we fear they will show utter weakness. Weakness at the hands of Donald Trump, in unwillingness to stand up to him in his ever greater power to usurp the Constitution, do whatever the hell he wants to do abroad with our precious military resources, all to ease his ego and distract the American people from his inability to address core issues. I bring up this issue of courage because each and every one of us, whether it was in combat or training here at home, saw true courage from young men and women, basically teenagers, who just did unbelievable things in service of this Constitution and the great country. So all we ask today is that members of Congress on both sides of the aisle match the courage that we see from our young combat soldiers. Just match the courage, just for one day, of what they show us each and every day. This is as plain as simple. Both parties are saying that they oppose forever wars. That's what we thought. We thought we were at a moment of unity, finally, in this country. That we're not going to engage in unconstitutional forever wars ever again. But it appears when Donald Trump says otherwise, everything shifts. Well, that's got to stop. These folks have to show their backbone, put the Constitution first, put the military first, and put our country first. Thank you, Rep. Crow, again. God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Max. Questions? Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the forever war objection? I mean, Congress did bipartisan pull back to the AUMFs that have been used for decades, that have been, charged as the source of a lot of the forever war strikes. And this resolution today specifically asked the president to take troops out of Venezuela. The State Department and the administration says there are no troops in Venezuela. And so I'm just curious to square the argument of, this resolution is going after a forever war.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, number one, Congress did act to retract what are called the zombie AUMFs. These are authorizations for use in military force that are just sitting there on the shelf, not to be used. Well, I'm sorry, we don't give blank checks to any president, Democrat or Republican, for them to use something if they want to use it. So there was progress in removing that one. There's another AUMF that's still in place that's been used, again, by Republican and Democrat presidents and Republican and Democrat Congresses that now are the justification for dozens of conflicts around the country. I believe we should pull back and reform that AUMF. That's not what's at issue today. What's at issue today is to be proactive to prevent this president from once again abusing the use of our military to pad the pockets of oil executives in Venezuela. So we want to be proactive here and prevent this president from committing us to yet another endless war.
Do you think this resolution, even though it says it directs the president to withdraw troops from Venezuela, if it did pass, it would prohibit future U.S. military involvement in the country?
That's correct. Yeah, Caitlin.
In a similar vein, this idea of, inserting war control over war powers resolution has failed in the House before in December, I think twice. Why do you think anything is going to be different this time around?
Well, listen, it's always the right time to do the right thing. I have been endlessly disappointed by the lack of courage and conviction by House Republicans when it comes to things that they have said previously they support. But my door is always open. And it is never too late to do the right thing for our troops, for our military families, for our veterans, for every tax-paying American who's tired of trillions of dollars going to endless conflict while they can't afford homes. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford to send their kids to school. I mean, those are the things that we need to be relentlessly focused on. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe in a strong national security, but I don't believe in endlessly committing ourselves to conflicts that end poorly. After 20 years, is there any American that can step up and say that they think that the thousands of lives and the trillions of dollars ended up with the right result in Iraq and Afghanistan? The answer clearly is no, to almost every American. Right, that is what we are here to push back against. Max? We were just joined also by another fellow veteran from New Hampshire, Maggie Goodlander. Maggie.
Thank you, Jason. I think what brings us here today is a love of this country, a love of our Constitution, which I carry with me everywhere I go. It's very useful in this job in ways big and small. But this is a moment for us to be clear and for us to be truly faithful to what our job is under this great document. And it is our job to declare war, to make decisions around how we're going to spend taxpayer dollars and whether to put American lives on the line. This is a responsibility entrusted in the Congress for good reasons, and Jason's absolutely right. The time to do the right thing is always now, and we will be relentless in pressing this issue, in pressing our colleagues. Every member of this Congress should be on the record and forced to vote on this most basic issue, that it is our responsibility under the Constitution to participate in decisions of war and peace, and we will keep pressing this issue because we have a president who believes he's checked only by his own morality, which is outrageous and completely at odds with who we are as Americans and what we have all committed to in this great and fragile experiment. So we will continue to press the issue every day that we have the honor of serving this great institution. I want to thank Vote Vets and our extraordinary veterans who are here today. I love being alongside my colleague Jason Crow, and thank you all for being here. Turn it over to you, Max, or back to you, Jim.
Yeah. And any additional questions? Yes.
This isn't related to the legislation specifically, but could you talk about, in the context of future wars, Iran, what's your read? I'm curious to hear from the other veterans. Your read on where the Trump administration is right now as far as its intentions for operations or any sort of intervention in Iran. What you're concerned about.
Sure. Well, I mean, this president campaigned as an isolationist. He campaigned as somebody who wanted to end these endless conflicts and the exorbitant funding and sacrifice of Americans. And then he's doing the exact opposite. He's governing as an imperialist, right? In the first year alone, Donald Trump has bombed 7 different countries. In fact, he doesn't seem to see a problem he doesn't think he can bomb his way out of. America's had enough with that. Iran is another good example. Iran is a rogue, violent terrorist regime, to be very clear. But is the answer to that to go to war with Iran? I firmly believe no. But more than anything, if that's what they think is in the interest of this country, then it damn well should be debated and voted on in the building behind me. That's the point. Because nobody is ever going to convince me that after 20 years of Iraq and Afghanistan, that if people in the U.S. Capitol, members of Congress, were forced every year to debate and vote, to debate and decide whether to spend the money, that these wars wouldn't have ended sooner and differently than they did. So that is why we are here. Max, Maggie?
Look, I think it's important to note here, none of us are objecting to the commander-in-chief's right and authority to defend this country from imminent attacks. But that is not what the decision to engage in sustained warfare is about. That's perhaps the most important decision, most important matter a member of Congress could vote on. It's one of the most important matter a president could consider because there's second, third, fourth order of effects, consequences that we cannot even imagine if you don't just pause and debate the matter extensively. That's why it's in the Constitution. This country was founded on the principle that we do not have kings here. Kings get to declare war just based on their own whim. Not in this country.
No. I mean, I've heard this argument. I think it's absurd. The idea that Congress shouldn't do anything and take votes because if it fails, that it somehow is taken as tacit permission. If that were the case, if that's what happens here, then we shouldn't be doing anything. Then Congress should be completely gutted. So I wholly reject this notion that we shouldn't debate, take hard votes, and take under consideration hard issues because somehow if it doesn't pass the first time or second time, that we should give up and go home and a president can do whatever he or she wants. No.
In a response to the administration's argument that they made before the Senate last week, that because there are no troops, that they correctly say in Venezuela, that these resolutions are moved.
No, we disagree with that too. I mean, this is an inoculating resolution to prevent what is already a lawless runaway presidency, who has shown time and again his disdain for rule of law and the Constitution, violating a third of the court orders against them now, refusing to submit to subpoenas, refusing to respond to requests for congressional testimony. violation after violation of the Impoundment Control Act and spending money however they damn well want, and then sending federal agents around the country masked, violating the civil rights and the constitutional rights of Americans, we are going to do everything possible, and we're never going to stop. Even if we don't win on the first or second time around, I am never going to stop trying to do the right thing and erect guardrails around this presidency.
I just add one thing. You know, the president unilaterally ordered a large-scale military operation in Venezuela without any notification here in Congress. The executives of big oil companies knew more about it than we did as members of Congress, which is an absolute outrage. But the basic predicate for all of this was an indictment that included 5 individuals. 2 were apprehended in this operation, which was an extraordinary, I mean, we see once again that we have the most extraordinary military that the world has ever known. But for our service members to be asked to do this, to put their lives on the line, and to have a president unable to answer the question in a way that's acceptable to any common sense and reasonable, freedom-loving person, when he's asked what's next and he said we're running Venezuela, as far as I understand it, that continues to be the status quo. The president should be focused on running the United States of America. That's what the American people have entrusted him to do, and that's what we're working to do every day.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.